Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another video game review featuring the best boys, Getselious and Sithscott.
Hello.
When one trail ends, another begins. That is right, we are reviewing the latest of the Legend of Heroes series, Trails into Reverie.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, so excited that if you haven't already, you can check out our written review done by the Sithscott man over here. That's on the Outerhaven.net. You can check that out. And if you haven't already, you can check out the YouTube channel where we have uploaded some gameplay videos of the game and you can see how we did it live, as well as, thousands of trailer reactions we did for the whole series. So, that helps too.
Every single time they had a trailer, we were there.
We were there. Yes. Now, will our hype be overcited? What will be our takes of the game? Will we give this game a strong decent zero? Who knows? But you should check out the video to be sure. Like, subscribe, hit the bell as well, and let's get started. The first thing we'll start with the RPG get masterpiece is Scott. Let them know who is the minds behind this beautiful game.
Alrighty, so Legend of Heroes Trails into Reverie was developed by Nihon Falcom, and it was published by NAS America.
Yep. NIS America has been, I guess, the current publisher for Falcom games recently, with Trails into Azure and Zero, Yeast Monstrum, which is Yeast 9, and Trails into Reverie. And, they've been doing a really good job of the port so far, being the new guy over XC for the previous game. I think it was Cold Steel, is that correct?
Yep. So the previous game, I guess, like game in the series, you can kind of count Zero and Azure, but they take place in a different timeline, or not timeline, time frame. And Cold Steel 1 through 4 is the arc before Reverie.
Exactly. Yep. So, XC took that, and now we have NIS, and they've been doing a good job with it. And let's talk about the first good job they did so far. Is talk about, I guess, outside of let's talk about the graphics and aesthetics. So, graphically, this game looks like a modded, like a more upscale version of a PS3 game.
Yeah. So Trails into Reverie is built on the same or a similar engine as their Cold Steel 3 and 4, which you'll notice that things look very similar, but a lot of the animations and stuff is a lot more buffed up and enhanced. So it does look actually better than Cold Steel, especially when you look and zoom in on like faces or cinematic animations. You'll notice that there's a lot of things that they've been doing to make it look better.
Yeah, and the transitions are pretty good in this game. So it's definitely above the level. Like the loading screens is like it's not as like thick or as harsh as the older games are. The aesthetic of the game is like, well, all the characters look like characters. Anime. It's a JRPG. The game has well done animations and well done custom CG art that reminds you of other RPG games such as the Tales of series, where characters unlock their burst art or their mystic art, and the characters such as Lloyd would do his ultimate attack, or Rean. It's really, really well done in that degree. So the aesthetic is really, really well done because the characters are they all look different. There is no like copy pasta in this game because I know Randy isn't Lloyd, who isn't Rean, who isn't C. So they all look different, not just like, swap a character, different hair things. And the aesthetic is very defined with them. The characters are well designed. They look like who they are. And I can identify each of them who they are based off like their actions they do or when I see them. So that's a good thing. Consider a roster this big.
Yeah, especially with the roster this big. And one thing that I really appreciate is when you notice some of the games that have like more anime aesthetics, you'll notice like all their faces are very similar or same. In this regard, it seems like all their eyes and noses and like mouths actually are pretty distinct. So
Yeah,
it's not like they just copy and pasted everything over like you'd see in other anime games. This actually, I think they put a lot of love and effort into constructing their characters to look different from one another.
exactly. Because it's like no insult to like other anime games. I understand you have Model A for male, Model A for B, or Model A for certain body types. You just slap it on everyone else down the train.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't really see that much in this game that really matters. I think it's really good at what it does. So overall, I feel like I would give graphics and aesthetics a solid 4.
Yeah, I'd say 4. 4 is a good one.
Yeah, that's the 4 right there, rolling over. That's the 4. Bam, hit the 4 up. Yeah,
Look at those
Hey,
new animations.
look at those new animations. They're looking great. So the next thing we want to talk about is audio and sound effects. So if you are a Legend of Heroes or Trails fans, you'll notice that the OST in this game doesn't really contain all the music from prior games, but it contains like an arrangement of it. I would guess I'll describe it as there is a difference between Street Fighter Alpha 2 Gold and Street Fighter Alpha 2 music. It's the same game, but it's an arranged soundtrack, similar to like KOF arranged soundtrack, King of Fighters arranged soundtrack, and like regular King of Fighters music. Is that how to describe it, Scott?
Yeah, I'd say that's a very valid way of describing it.
Yeah. Now, is it bad? Absolutely not. I think there's still bangers.
No.
It's
Yeah,
it's
I really appreciate that everything the soundtrack does for having a culmination of basically everything that came before it. But I do admit that there are sometimes I wish that we had like the full tracks of, say, like the Zero and Azure arrangements.
yeah.
But I also wouldn't say like, oh, because they don't have it, it means it's bad. It's just different. And honestly, I appreciate them trying to like make things as culminations rather than just bringing things over.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I noticed that a lot of games do now when they like try to make an I would say their OST from like I would say a fusion of games together. I'll refer back to the King of Fighters. So the King of Fighters 15 has their original soundtrack, and then you can unlock other soundtracks from other games that you like from the King of Fighters series, and there's a lot of music you can unlock. I think that would have been a cool concept for for Reverie to have, that you can unlock music from the other games if that's not your style for some reason. But I think the music's pretty good. The sound effects of the game, which is the real thing, the voice acting is chef's kiss. It is
Oh,
mwah,
absolutely.
absolutely like everyone. Round of applause to voice director, voice actors, everyone put their effort in this game. You guys are doing great. In English, not just the Japanese.
Yes.
Yes, in English, yeah.
I want to give a strong like mentions to the voice. Well, I guess not the names because some of that would be kind of cheating. But the voice actor for C and the voice actor for Rean and the voice actor for Lloyd do phenomenal jobs with what they're given, and it made listening to the English dubs so good.
Yep. It makes so good. As well as, all right, I'm a little spoiler here because I'm a Sky fan. The fact I heard, yo, Estelle got an English voice actor. We did it. We did it, man. Like, we did it. I played Sky for like, a decade, like 5, 6 years ago. No voice now. You did it. Thanks, man. Thank you, Falco. I love you, man. But honestly, that was really good. The voice acting does feel natural. It doesn't feel like yelling. It's consistent. It matches the tone. Another good sound effects of the game, audio wise, is to talk about outside of music. The effects of battle in the game, the battle themes are really nice. It's really well done in regards where it matches the tone of the battle or the situation your team is in. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this game has a lot of hidden gems within its range. Even though it's like some of it are like remixed versions or arranged versions of the other previous Legend of Hero games in this game, I definitely consider the music and audio top notch. And with that, Scott, high five you, man. We gotta give this audio a 5, right?
This is a 5. This is absolutely a 5.
It's a 5 across the board. It sounds good. It's never overbearing. It's just consistent across the board. Both English and Japanese voice acting is top notch. The way that the characters emote themselves is great. The sound effects of the game doesn't sound bad. There's never a moment I ran into the classic audio bug where the game clips out. I can't hear anything anymore. It all works.
Yeah, having it function is great.
Yeah, so that's right there. Now it's time to get to the meat and potatoes of any RPG. Let's talk about the gameplay. So, first step out the way. Trails to Reverie is a turn-based RPG. I know. You can't figure that out. It's a turn-based RPG. All right.
They exist.
They exist. Now, this game combines a lot of elements of other turn-based RPGs and other RPGs together. The one thing I like about the Legends of Hero games is that though they, similar to, I say, Dragon Quest, where they're not as innovative as other games, but they do the things right enough to be somewhat innovative, such as, evading turn order, setting up your attacks, using MP or secondary resource to do attacks, things like that. It has a layer and layers of depth in the game to the point that this is probably, if you're looking for a pure turn-based experience, it's up there for you.
Oh, absolutely. They really enhanced and made this a lot, not necessarily streamlined, but a lot more engaged than the previous entries. They
Yeah.
added, fronts. They added more assault meters. They added, I mean, a lot more party members to make a lot more builds and a lot more quartz to look after. And pretty much from the get go, like you get a lot of like this, some of the strongest quartz in the game from like Cold Steel 3 and 4, just like in the beginning, just looking at like some of the beginning areas, which was kind of insane. But they do that to let you know that there's going to be a lot of builds you can try and just adapt with.
Right,
And
which
it
is
makes the
cool.
gameplay just so much more enjoyable to be like, oh, I can do this build, I can do this build just straight from the gate.
Right, and for those who don't know, Scott, let them know about the court system.
Alrighty, so quartz system is something that you can either have as a spell or there's buffs you can have for your stats. You can put them on something that's known as like your Arcus unit, and each character has their own Arcus that has a master quartz, which is basically like your class ish.
Yeah, your
And you
key
can have
ability.
up to, yeah, you have up to two master quartz on one character, so you can have like one or two like actual class builds, and then you have normal quartz, which you can just inlay into your Arcus unit, which has other abilities like you put passives on it. You can put yourself with stat boosts, or if you like your one of my favorite builds in the Trail series particularly is evasive tanks. So
Yeah,
you can have a lot of evasive quartz just on your character that just constantly makes it so your character evades everything.
pretty much. I've done the opposite. I've done Deathman Randy, where I will keep his HP as low as possible until his stats go up. That is a psycho man stats. I've done it, and I'm like, that's right, Randy, go with them. Get him, Randy, get him. Now all they have to do is make sure he get to his turn, but it's a really fun ride when I get there. That's Razor's Edge. But yeah, you can develop your own play style, how you want to play. There isn't, and with my limited experimentations, and Scott's has done more experimentation. There isn't any build that feels like it's garbage. There isn't something I would, unless you're actively doing something terrible on purpose. There isn't something that's just garbage.
If you're trying to be like the master of all things, maybe you can maybe see at the like when you start nearing higher levels, you might notice you might not have that much ability. But as long as you have a build that you want, that's going to be either like a magic build, a strength build, an evasive build, a defensive build, you are going to find something that you'll like, and it'll most likely be viable.
Right, and because there's multiple party members, you can kind of build around that. I remember, at least later in the game, spoiler, I tried making Rean towards a crit man, and in order to do that, I had to legitimately get people to buff or take hits for him, and I was like, this is kind of
Yeah.
cool. Like, making him crit man was kind of cool. I don't like the character still. I mean, I think Lloyd's the best, but, I had to play another character. I know why they do this to me. Why?
I mean, Rean is a good one to have as a crit build just because he has some of the most, or he has some of the biggest AoE moves. Just
Yeah,
randomly
exactly. That
you
was that
can
was
have.
that was exactly my thinking. I was like, if I can just use the AoEs and do as much lucky crit I can do, great. But I saw another build where people just made him into a taunt machine. I'm like, this is kind of interesting. But again, there's a lot of expressiveness in it. I think it's really cool. But all the mechanics that is done in this game aren't particularly new in the JRPG genre, but it's done well enough where it's definitely like, this is how you do it. The same way I refer earlier to Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest is a very traditional JRPG, but it's done right to the point. Everything makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. This may
Sometimes,
not always do something, I guess, extremely innovative, but the way that they do make the game and how it plays is extremely well done.
yeah, if the wheel's not broken, don't fix it. Doesn't mean you can return a different wheel. With that, I gotta give the gameplay, even though again this is a JRPG, it's whatever. It's a 5.
It is a 5,
It is a
absolutely.
5. Let's roll
This
this
is
roll.
this is the one that I'm probably going to be going back to the most with the Trail
Yep.
series.
Yeah, because there's so many things you can do. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much things you can do. And the also element parts of the gameplay, the story of it. The story, if you haven't played Trails game before, is a bit on I would say disjointed at times, but kind of slow. But it lets you really sink your teeth into the game. It lets you know
Yeah.
why you're here. Why is this important?
I mean, it makes sense for this one in particular too, because you're trying to interweave three different like threads of characters of storylines that will eventually meet up, and it does explain everything near the end. But there are definitely points where you feel like you kind of wish they wouldn't go over the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. And
Well,
now
one
it's
route in particular, which is the Rean route, will constantly make you do flashbacks to explain why you're doing something, even though you were just doing that thing in the previous route.
yeah, Rean suffers from new journal syndrome. That part alone hurts me a bit. And one of the interesting parts about the game as well, before we talk about the final score, is that the game doesn't really does its best to kind of weave the reason why these characters would work together in the story whatsoever. I think that's really kind of cool, which rewards you if you have played the other series or if this is the first game you started and hey, I know why they're all doing this. That's really great.
Yeah, it's a good introduction, but I also don't think I would recommend this as an introduction.
No, I would recommend Zero and Azure. That's the game to
Zero
go.
Azure, I think, is probably the best entry point right now, especially because we still don't have Sky in a good capacity right now. Unless you have are wanting to try Steam, but you probably want to heavily mod the Steam one of Sky to make it playable.
Pretty much. And with that, we'll start with the final score. So we enjoyed the graphics and aesthetics are beautiful. I think it works out pretty well, even though even the game does look like it's from a previous generation. Hey, just because it's old doesn't mean you can't make it work. So that's a
Yeah.
thing.
I mean,
The
we still play
music,
pixel games.
exactly, yeah. And the audio and sound effects are well done. Both English dub and JP dub is fantastic. So, and the music score is excellent across the board. Even if it doesn't have all the music from the prior games, the way the arrangement of the arranged soundtrack of this game, I'll call it as, is solid. And the
Yeah.
gameplay of the game is, even if you haven't played it before, there are elements of many of the JRPGs that you have played that are in this game. Elements of Persona, elements of Dragon Quest, or Dragon Warrior. Yeah, Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior. See, I'm getting old now. Dragon Quest. Elements of Dragon. This is my age. Yeah,
Game.
yes, a game, yeah. Elements of Final Fantasies in here with the core system, how to use XP and TP to get your abilities up. There's a lot of RPG mechanics working together in one into this beautiful blend. And without the way, final score, this is gonna be a huff one. So drum roll, please. All right, Scott. This game is a 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why didn't we give it the perfect score? Why? Why? Because Rean exists. It's Rean's fault. Okay, that's the reason why. All right.
We could have replaced the Rean route with the Stells route. No.
Okay, if that happened, this game would be a 7 out of 10, a 7 out of 5 for free. Now, why is this game a 4? That's really clear. Now, the reason they game 4, there are a couple flaws in the game that are hard to ignore, such as the jankness of how the story meshes with each other does feel outputting at some times. As Scott mentioned earlier, the Rean route just flashbacktopia. C's route feels sometimes a bit too short.
C's route does feel too short, especially because I think C's route probably gets some of the best moments.
Right.
And then
So
it's just like, okay, time to go back to Rean.
exactly. And another element of the game that drops a little from perfection is again, um, as I said, I really wish there was a way to unlock all the music in the game, like you can do in King of Fighters or other games, so I can have the OST that I want or build towards it. Even though the array soundtrack is great, there are some classic tunes I would just want,
Yeah, absolutely.
and that's about it. And gameplay wise, I feel because how to put this. There is no way you're going to play all the characters at once. This game have multiple playthroughs, all right? If you're that kind of person, once you develop your team and what's going, it's dunners, okay? Like the JRPG curse. I learned my team. I'm not learning nobody else unless I have to.
It gets tough when you're trying to manage so many team characters, especially
Exactly.
when like in the Reverie corridor, they'll pit you with a bunch of characters that are randomly thrown together at times to fight like what's known as like
Yeah.
a void spire, I believe is what it's called, and you have to fight with all these random characters. And because I don't always focus on all the characters, there'll be some that are like level 100 when I have like a bunch of level 150 still I'm working on.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. Which is that could be a little bit punishing in a way, but it is what it is. But this is still an excellent RPG in the Legend of Heroes series, and if this is the first one you pick up, you're not starting off on a bad place.
No, just make sure you look at some of the backstory they give you in the beginning.
Yep, there's also which is, they do a good job on it. If you in the menu screen, this is Parko's story. You can click the button and read the story if you want, which is cool. And that's about
Yeah.
it. And the only thing, and that's pretty much how I feel about the Legends of Heroes Trails of Reverie. I think it's an excellent RPG to sink your teeth in for new and old fans of the series, and I think it does an excellent job ending, I would say, the first arc of the series.
Yep, I'm looking forward to Kuro no Kiseki when that's going to be localized.
Yep. And I think Scott feels the same way. And I guess to say that is everything. Thank you guys so much for coming out and listening to our review of Legend of Heroes: Tales of Reverie. Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell as well, be notified next time we go live. Follow me on Twitter. You can see right there on the screen at Getselious. Follow Sithscott on Twitter at Sithscott. And be sure to follow us on twitch.tv/Getselious and twitch.tv/Sithscott. So we can go live, go watch us play some games and talk about that stuff. That's kind of cool, right?
Yes. Yes, it is
Yeah,
cool.
it is cool. And without the way, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
See ya.